Chapter 15. The Exploit. Gravel and dust stretched out ahead of them, winding down into the abyssal maw. The path hugged the eastern lip of the chasm before bending away to the north, into its labyrinthine twists and turns. They stopped to survey that massive throat of darkness, and Kai's hand trembled against a boulder beside him. The crystal seethed beneath his cloak. At some point in the last hour, the heat stopped feeling like a general sensation and more like a slow upward current, beginning somewhere beneath his boots and routing itself through his belly toward the hilt pressed against him. Something was being gathered through him, lifted out of the world by an appetite that had nothing to do with him, and nothing he did slowed its climb. When he blinked, after images of silver light burned across his sight, his fingers had gone half numb against the boulder. The edges of his vision sharpened while the chasm beyond them receded, distant and strange, as if he were watching it from somewhere just beyond his own face. Whatever had forged the crystal clearly had not made it for mortal hands, and right now he was merely a channel for it, and the reservoir that it pulled from lay somewhere far deeper than he had words for. There. Aira's voice cut through the static building in his ears. She pointed across the chasm. Through the magic of his abyssal sight, he caught the outlines of Voidkin. Hundreds of them, maybe more. They scrambled like frenetic spiders, shifting from solid to smoke. We can't go through them. Aira's hand found his elbow, steadying him. Kai, we need to— The Black Sentinel. The name of the witch's tower came out rough from his throat. He needed to rest, drink water, but he knew if he did, he'd be wasting precious time. Aira let go of him. What? He pushed off the boulder, forcing his legs to hold steady. Before heading into the maw proper, the path forked and curved westward out of sight. He couldn't see the fortress from here, of course, but he didn't need to. He knew where it stood. Every rune runner did. And he knew, right now, the path across the face of the fortress was free and clear. It was half the distance of trying to skirt the Voidkin back toward Gloam's end. It'd be direct. And if the Night Coven had brought all of their monstrous night creatures here, blocking the obvious route through the maw, then the Sentinel itself would be short-handed. They couldn't guard both now that Zoraith was gone. Aira, think about it. They won't be watching for us there. Kai started off to the west. It's too obvious. They'll think we'll try to avoid it, and we can reach Gloam's end in 2 churns if we cut through the tower's shadow. You can't be serious. Straight on through. Half a churn under the shadow, if that. The crystal pulsed again, and he had to stop and brace himself until the wave of heat passed. Yeah, half a churn. Maybe less. Kai, look at me. He turned. Her eyes were wide. She closed the distance and put her hands on his shoulders in one motion. She was searching him for something she clearly wasn't finding. What's gotten into you? He asked, narrowing his eyes. Nothing. What's gotten into you? Nothing that waiting here will fix. He pulled free, gentler than the urgency his body demanded. Going through them adds a churn. We don't have that time before your magic wears out, Aira. There really isn't a good option, Kai, but the Black Sentinel is a death wish. Oh, is it now? Kai thrust an open hand toward the maw, then to the western path. If they're here, they're not there. The route past the Sentinel is safer, but only if we move now. And if you're wrong. If I'm wrong, then we run, or die, like we'd do anywhere else. He met her gaze, willing her to see the truth of it. But I'm not wrong. There was a long pause. Is that you talking, or is that the crystal? Does it matter? He finally said. Yes, it matters. There was concern in her voice. I don't have time for this. Aira, it's a simple calculation. Look at the maw. You decide, he said with force. But decide fast. We can't stay here all churn. Kai clasped at his chest. The heat under the palm had a shape now, narrow and high, right around his heart. Era's gaze dropped to where he held himself, and he tried to stay the tremor running through his fingers. He let the hand fall and made the motion look easy. He couldn't tell what his face was doing, though. He hoped it wasn't giving much away. "What's it doing to you?" she asked. "What?" "The crystal. It's affecting you. What do you feel?" Kai pursed his lips and closed his eyes, trying to concentrate on the urgent sensation building within him. Burning. Burning what? I don't know. The admission felt like defeat. Something. Everything. He forced himself to meet her eyes again. Like it knows what's around it and doesn't like what it feels. It wants to do something about the Nightshawl, like it's gathering its power, but doing it through me as its bridge. It's doing what it wants, and I have no idea how to tell it to slow down, to calm itself. Era sighed and turned toward the Voidkin, studying their movements across the chasm. One of them had shifted closer to their side with a howl that might have been driven by hunger. "They're spreading," she said. "If we wait much longer, they'll have both routes blocked." "I know. That's what I've been telling you." She went still for a moment. Then, "If we go past the Sentinel, and you're wrong about my concealing ward, then—" "I'm not wrong. How can I be wrong about this, of all things? You don't know that. My ward could last several turns, or the spell could null out this very moment. You're asking me to trust a relic you can barely control." "Yes." The simplicity of his answer seemed to catch her off guard. She stared at him, and Kai watched her arrive at the same conclusion he already had, that standing here debating was its own kind of death sentence. "Westward, then," she said. "No delays. And if I see any sign the witches have spotted us, the witches can't touch us. I'm a good runner. Yes, we run." Beyond that, he wanted to offer some reassurance that the plan was sound and that the relic hadn't compromised his judgment. But the heat spiked again, stealing his breath, and all he could manage was a nod. Era didn't wait for more. Kai followed in silence. He focused on Era's silhouette ahead of him, and the steady rhythm of her movement. One foot, then the other. After a while it became its own sort of meditation, which helped ease the mounting pressure of the dagger. The path curved away from the maw's edge, leading them deeper into shadow. Kai didn't look back at the Voidkin, but then again, he didn't need to. He could still feel their presence the way he felt the chasm, a vast, hungry absence clawing at his back. The creature's distant keening rose and fell like the howling of wind through the rocks. The churn had cycled as they moved west, giving way to the veil. The Nightshawl moiled around them, and the curse had become too thick even for their abyssal sight. But, somehow, even through the myriad folds of darkness, the Black Sentinel stood as obvious as the Crystal Archives had been. But unlike the archives, it rose ahead of them like a grotesque, bony finger. The structure defied sense. Towers that should have collapsed under their own weight spiraled upward, leading into each other at impossible angles. And above the tallest spire, a mist the color of a bruise spiraled slowly. Perhaps it was the power of the ebon crystal he saw now. Era spoke of how it bled their dark magic into the void. Kai stomped with one hand braced against a spur of stone. The crystal continued to send fresh waves of heat through his heart, rising into his throat. This time, when Kai focused on it, breathed through it, the sensation didn't overwhelm him. Instead, it sank deeper, down into his belly where the feeling was more manageable. He forced his gaze down, blinking away after images that swam across his vision. As he looked down, he noticed the path led closer to the fortress now. It had kept him at a fair distance moments ago. Now it bent at a different angle, as if the track had swung while he wasn't looking. Kai took a step forward. The route seemed clear moments ago. Now, he wasn't so sure. Uncertainty settled into his bones like cold water. "Laikis vus kalepkel," he spoke. The guiding mote flickered to life once more. It drifted forward a few paces, then wavered, as if uncertain which direction to choose. The spell should have marked the way, but the Prismir trembled in the air, caught between the path ahead and some other route he couldn't see. What was it even guiding him toward? A sound rustled around him. It was only then he realized he hadn't heard Era in a short while. He cranked his head around his shoulder. Era stood several paces away, her arms wrapped around herself, staring at the Black Sentinel. She wasn't moving. He'd never seen her go that still. She hadn't spoken since they left the crest of the Abyssal Maw. Era led at first, but fell behind when the fortress came into view, shrinking from it. Under the slithering of the veil, she'd gone smaller. Not bodily, mind you, but in the size of her presence, as if she wanted to hide, like a child. There were many reasons people waited for the churn to venture out. The Nightshawl's veil got into people's heads if they let it, twisting thoughts, amplifying doubts, pulling at the threads holding a person together. And here, at the base of the Black Sentinel, those mental manipulations seemed to magnify. Kai turned back to the moat, watching it drift aimlessly. "Era can't help me. Even the Prismir has veiled me." Kai frowned. The Avatar had told him Prismir always sought equilibrium. He had been chewing on that phrase ever since, tracing it, never quite finding what it meant for him. Was that all he was? A scale for cosmic balance? A counterweight measured against losses he had never had a hand in choosing? A sister, a father, a home, tipping towards some equilibrium he couldn't see or measure himself? And an instrument of revenge, just like your father. The thought landed obliquely against his consciousness. Not my father, but your father. Whose father? Kai's head jerked over one shoulder, then the other. The path was empty, save for Era, several paces behind. He played with the idea of raising the flat of the dagger to his eyes, but dared not break the spell hiding its signature so close to the witch's tower. No. He pushed back at the thought. Hard. I'm nothing like him. I'm doing this to survive. For Korik. For the people whose suffering the Nightshawl's been consuming for cycles. But the words rang thin, even in his own head. The moat flickered, failing into the darkness. "Era," he called out. There was no answer. "No darkness holds us, Era." Then, weakly, "Sorry, we have to keep going." She came up alongside him, and then past him, and didn't meet his eye as she did. Still, Kai had seen that life had returned to her. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah, thanks for that." "For what?" "For snapping me out of whatever that was." He started walking again, but behind her now. Whatever he said to her had clearly taken. If only Dinetta could be reached the same way, the curse pried off of it, what had been broken put right, or to break it further than it has ever been. His pulse quickened. Where had that dark thought come from? Was it the veil's intrusion? He shook his head and pressed the heels of his hands into his eyes, trying to push out whatever was settling there. But maybe there was something in that thought. The Crystal wanted a reckoning, and if it was going to have one, it would have it here at the heart of the witch's power. The ebon crystal was the pillar of their immortality. Everything they were running from sat about 150 yards above his head. He looked up. If he could reach it, if he could strike at the ebon crystal, the masterpiece. The words slid through his mind like oil on water, admiring and cold. Kai went very still, trying to make sense of the dissonance. He nearly forgot his original train of thought. Oh, right. The masterpiece. If he could strike it, the Black Sentinel would be reduced to rubble. The witch's immortality would be shattered. Their corruption would be unmade in a single decisive stroke. It would be transformative, beautiful even in its violence. The heat in his chest surged, spreading up his neck, storming across his head and behind his eyes. Was this urgency he felt? Nay. Approval. Yes. It approved of this. If the crystal had truly chosen him, if its power was meant to restore balance, then this was where his path led, to destruction. That wasn't bad, was it? To destroy evil in order to make way for something good in its wake. That was justice. That was right. Kai's hand trembled against his chest once more, and his breathing had quickened without him noticing. That wasn't what the crystal meant, was it? Of course. It seeks to remake that which has been stolen. The suffering would end if it did. All of it. Immediately. The witches had held this realm in their grip for centuries. How many had died under it? How many of thine brethren hath been twisted, corrupted, lost to the Nightshawl's hunger, feeding the curse? Dost thine hands desire to avenge them? Perhaps, yes, but not like father. Father had picked up his hatchet and came to the Black Sentinel seeking revenge. He tried to fight them. He lost. But Kai had something his father never possessed. The crystal. The means to actually change things. He slowed his breathing and willed the heat to return to his belly, warming rather than burning. The prismir settled. The ebon crystal. Right, the crystal. How easily his thoughts ebbed and flowed in the veil. He swallowed, forcing himself to focus. The desire to act surged through his hands. The crystal was right there. The witches had made themselves into pillars of corruption because the crystal was allowed to exist. Remove the crystal, and the witch's power would collapse. All except the mother. It would be one decisive act, one moment of clarity and strength. Everything else, all the careful planning, the doubt, the hesitation, they were distractions from what he'd always been meant to do. Thine will is set. The path is laid bare. Aira, stop, he called out. Aira turned around hesitantly. He could sense the frustration rising within her. What is it now, Kai? You've been stopping a lot. This isn't exactly a safe place to linger. Kai's fingers flexed around the hilt of the crystal. The tower. I'm going to the tower, he said. She balled up her hands into fists and rested them on her hips. Her brows gathered like storm clouds over her eyes. The void you are. We're going back to Gloam's End. It's my decision. He drew the crystal from its sheath. The heft of it settled into his hand like it belonged there. And like it always had. A small twinkle of light moved across the crystal in slow ripples, deep and shifting, and he turned the blade to follow it. When he drew it close, the heat pulsed against his chest in time with his heartbeat. Or his heartbeat had taken up its rhythm. He couldn't say which. And it didn't seem to matter right now. It's telling me, Aira. Saying it aloud only made him more certain. There's so little time. We have to be decisive. We have an opportunity, and we can't hesitate. Aira took a step toward him. Kai, we can't. I can destroy the ebon crystal, Aira. He lifted the blade, and the glow caught him. It held him. Isn't that what you wanted to? While they're distracted, we can end it here. All of it. End it? Her voice rose. Kai, listen to yourself. You don't even know how to control the crystal yet. You don't even know what it might be doing to you. It's making thine hands stronger. Kai's jaw set. I know exactly what it's doing. What I'm doing. Do you? Aira moved closer, searching his face. Because right now, You sound like someone I don't recognize. He met her eyes. Something flickered behind them. Was it doubt? Or concern? Whatever it was gone before he could register it, and he let his gaze drop back to the blade. Why was she resisting him? She wanted this curse ended as much as he did. More, even. She wanted the witches dead. Don't you want this? He asked. Of course I do. It's telling me to do this, Era. Isn't that what you wanted? To kill the Night Coven? Destroy their hold on this world? His grip tightened around the blade's hilt. It's what my father tried to do, and failed. But I won't fail. Your father? Era drew a sharp breath and stopped. Her hand lifted, faltered, then went to her temple. She pressed her fingers there hard. She shut her eyes. Her voice dropped, urgent now. We need to survive, Kai. Not throw ourselves at the witch's stronghold. We need to regroup and gather allies and think this through. You're letting it... Her hand came up toward the blade, and she gestured haphazardly toward it. You're letting it twist you. Insolence. Who is she to command thee? Something inside Kai snapped. Why do you care what happens to me? You're just using me as a means to your ends. What does it matter to you if I do this now or later? The words left him with the relic's heat behind them, gratifying, and he braced for the answering strike. But it didn't come. Era froze, her eyes locked with his, and conflict and confusion passed across her face. It was an unguarded thing she rarely let surface, before she tucked it away. Kai felt her silence as if she had thrust her sword through his gut. Her anger, her frustration, even her contempt. Those were responses he could have answered, but this quiet refusal to engage meant he was right. She didn't care. All her protection and training had just been pragmatic ways to keep a useful ally alive. Nothing more. The power surged hot against his chest, but the heat couldn't touch the cold spreading through him now. He had pushed her for an answer, demanded she justify caring about him, and she had withdrawn. A fool's hope. She careth for none. No. Yes. Or maybe she did care. But that was exactly why she wouldn't say it. Did she not trust him with it? He supposed saying it out loud would make it feel real for Era, and that would give him power to hurt her. She looked away. Kai tried to read the tells in her expression, but she intentionally hid from him. Rune Runners act, Era. They don't wait for permission. You know this is the only chance we have while we have the element of surprise on our side. If we wait, they'll all return. Even with the others, we can't fight the entire coven. Fine. Her voice came out small, almost resigned. We'll go to the tower. I'll do what I can to keep you alive, should our presence be known. She paused, then added, but don't pretend I didn't warn you. Even without the entire coven there, just one witch alone is formidable. Era, Kai started. She raised a hand, cutting him off. I don't want to talk anymore. The words were clipped and distant. She pulled her cloak tighter and turned toward the Black Sentinel's looming silhouette. For the record, I do care about what happens to you. I set you on this course. Remember that. Kai watched her for a moment before closing the distance and following behind. Her admission left a question behind, gnawing at him with every step. Why? Why indeed? The air above Kai and Era shivered, and Alindra drifted in the unseen space, just beyond their shallow perception. The veil's darkness coiled around her like a satin cloth, and through it she wove her threads, delicate pressures against fragile minds, thoughts planted where they might take root and grow wild. Oh, these mortal minds, how beauteously do they come undone. The boy had been too easy. His heart was already a knot of longing and loss. wound so tight that even the gentlest tug sent his whole psyche cascading. The crystal had done most of the work, really. All Alindra had to do was whisper affirmations into the spaces where his doubt dwelt strongest, and the avalanche followed suit.
Yes, 'tis right. This is thy path.
And he believed it. He convinced himself that it had been his idea all along. But the witchling, the witchling was different. Alindra's attention sprang to her, sliding through the currents to where Aira walked, her thoughts churning like a storm of the drenchmire. Such resistance, such willpower. Where the boy's mind bent like green wood, the girl's was like stone. She was much harder to break. But it was not impossible. Thou shalt never earn his trust. Alindra breathed into the hollow places in Aira's thoughts. To him, thou art what all witches are. Monstrous. The girl flinched, though she didn't know why. The seed was planted. Doubt, like rot, needed only time and darkness to spread. Alindra had been working at Aira for leagues now, threading fear through her certainty, guilt through her care, and isolation through her connection to the boy. Every time she tried to reach him, Alindra was there, whispering that she shouldn't, that he didn't want her help, that she was the last person he'd ever trust. It was delicious work. Alindra had forgotten how satisfying it was to pluck at mortal hearts like harp strings, listening to the notes they made as they frayed. And below, the witchling turned toward the Black Sentinel, silent, already withdrawing it to herself once more. The boy followed, his expression set with false conviction.
Wondrous,
she mused.
Oh, joyous night.
The fortress loomed ahead, and within it, the Vos Chrism Zelith pulsed with the power Alindra channeled through the veil. They were walking straight into the snake's coil, and neither of them saw the jaws waiting to close over them. The boy thought he was choosing destiny, and the girl thought she was protecting him, earning his trust. And both were wrong. Alindra drifted closer, savoring the moment. Soon they would cross the threshold. Soon the Sentinel's wards would seal behind them, and then the real work would begin. They were nearly home. Joyous night, indeed. The air grew heavier the closer they came. Kai could feel it pressing against him at every angle, thick with the ominous feeling of something unseen, watching. Each breath came shorter than the last, as though the Nightshawl itself rationed what it would let into his lungs. The Black Sentinel loomed above them. Up close, the stone seemed to pulse, dark mist seeping from its surface as though the tower itself breathed. With the slow turn of dread, Kai imagined the tower as a living thing, anticipating them to draw closer. Despite his trepidation, Prismir continued to surge hot in his chest. The heat brought with it a certainty that he had not felt since leaving the ruins. At the peak of the tower lay the ebon crystal. With enough Prismir at hand, one clean thrust would do it. Everything the witches had built across the centuries could be undone in the time it took him to draw the power that surged around him now. The entrance to the Black Sentinel rose before them like a mouth waiting to swallow. Twin iron gates, each 3 times Kai's height, stood partially open, an invitation or a trap. He couldn't tell which. The metal itself looked ominous and much darker than iron should be. Its surface crawled with sigils, as though responding to his presence. Where the gates met the stone archway, unlit braziers hung by rusted brackets. Beyond the gates, a courtyard stretched toward the grand entrance. Once it might have been a beautiful garden for a marquis on the outskirts of Wasivras, perhaps. Now it was overgrown and neglected. The stone was cracked and blackened, marked with scorch patterns that suggested past violence. Statues of Myr'id lined the path. Their features were eroded beyond recognition, though Kai could still make out the shapes of hands reaching upward in supplication, now just expressing terror at the Nightshawl that roiled above. At the courtyard's far end, the grand entrance yawned open. It was a massive doorway, framed by pillars that twisted as they rose. No light came from within. Kai shuddered. Then he steeled himself before starting toward the gates. Aira caught his arm. Her voice dropped to a hiss. "Where are you going? Are you insane?" Kai tugged himself away. He looked over his shoulder at her. "They won't expect us to go straight in. If we move fast, then..." No, that's exactly what they expect. Don't you see it? It's a trap." She gestured toward the massive gates ahead. "The courtyard might be empty, but the Black Sentinel's vestibule is a killing ground. There's all kinds of evil maledictions set up to keep Rune Runners like us from trespassing." "How do you know that?" "I just know. Every Rune Runner knows that, Kai." "No, they don't. No one's ever even been inside the Black Sentinel." "For good reason," she said. The way she was acting now made him gnash his teeth. At the top of the aerodrome in the ruins, with Zorai's voidkin closing in on every side, she had thrown sigils into the air on a guess. A guess! She had said as much afterward, with that weak grin of hers, as if her not knowing had been part of the charm. The Abyssal Maw had been her idea too. At every step, she had been the one telling him to move faster and push further. And now, with the blade alive in his palm and the witch's crystal waiting somewhere past those gates, she had turned cautious. Wards she had never seen, in a vestibule she could not describe, had become reason enough to turn and run. A laugh tried to climb out of him, and he held it down. "Suffer her to go." "Go, then." The words came out cold. "Go on to Gloam's End and tell Korik. I'll stay, and I'll do what must be done." Aira's expression darkened as she stepped closer. "I'm not leaving you here to die. Come with me. We'll come back with the others." If we hesitate now and not take this opportunity, they'll tighten their grip. But if we do this, we can cut them at the root. There's no time, Aira. The witches know where we are, and they will come to Gloam's End. They'll kill everyone. It has to be now. A tense, silent moment passed between them. Eventually, Aira's posture gave out and her shoulders slumped. "I can't leave you to do this alone, so I'll stay with you. But we're not going in there." She pointed across the courtyard. "There's another way in, a secret way." "Where?" She pointed toward the side of the fortress's outer wall, where the stone curved into shadow. "There's steps built into the cliffside, around there. It climbs to the postern one way, and drops down to the cliff to the water gate the other. Neither's been used in years. If we move quietly, we can get inside before they know we're here." Yes, climb thou, climb. He blinked away the thoughts in his mind. "Fine," he muttered. They slinked below the wall, toward the side facing the cliffs. The steps were narrow and uneven, carved from the same unnatural stone as the rest of the Sentinel. Each slab groaned beneath their weight, and their edges were worn smooth by centuries of neglect. Cracks spiderwebbed across the stone, some wide enough that Kai could see through to the chasm below. In places, entire sections of stairs collapsed, leaving gaps that had been bridged with planks of rotted wood or rusted metal, balanced precariously between the remaining supports. Kai tested each one before crossing, feeling the wood flex and creak, dead certain it would give way and send him plunging into the darkness below. The higher they climbed, the worse it became. The stairs clung to the side of the tower like the last knuckles of a dead hand, sections jutting out over nothing but air. Wind howled through the gaps, tugging at their cloaks, and Kai had to press himself tightly against the tower's wall to keep his balance. One such gap was nothing more than 3 wooden planks laid across an expanse twice his body length. Kai could feel the wind whistling up from the void beneath, daring them to cross. The entire structure shuddered with each gust. "Carefully," Era said. Kai went first. Well aware of what fate awaited him at the bottom, he didn't need the warning at all. Every step felt like it might be the one that brought the whole thing down. After they crossed and scaled a few more steps, Era's arm shot out around and across Kai's chest, barring his path. "Wait!" Kai froze mid-step. She crouched. Her eyes traced something unseen across the next stair ahead of him. After a moment, she reached out and pressed gently on the step's outer edge. It rocked slightly, almost imperceptibly, on its base. A false step. Kai's breath caught. The stone had been cut away beneath, leaving only the surface balanced on a fulcrum. Step on it wrong, and it would tip, probably sending whoever stood on it plunging into the chasm below. Maybe even the whole section with it. "How did you—" Kai started, but Era was already busy. She unclasped the rope and a climbing hook from her waist and hooked it around the far edge of the step, tugging at it to test its give. Then, bracing herself against the wall, she eased the false stone upward, revealing the hollow beneath. 4 iron spikes thrust upward from the cavity, rusted but still sharp enough to have skewered him had he moved forward. "Zemzar," she said, pinching dust from her pouch. She snapped the iron spikes free from the cavity, tossing them down into the void. Kneeling, she wedged a smaller stone beneath the step, jamming the fulcrum. The step then fixed into place with a scrape. There, she stood, brushing stone dust from her hands. "How?" Kai stared at the step, then at her. "How did you know it was there?" It was obvious. But it wasn't obvious. Kai had been watching every step, scanning for weak spots and gaps, and he'd seen nothing. No wobble, no difference in the stone's color or texture. Yet Era had known instantly, spotting something he, as a rune runner, as sharp as they come, completely missed. He said nothing, though. Kai merely nodded and continued. At last, they reached a small landing at the top of the ascent, leading to the postern. A rusted iron door stood between them and the interior of the fortress. Kai coiled back his fist, gathering Prismir with intent to blast the door wide open. "Don't." He released the Prismir. "What? Why?" She moved to the door and pointed to 5 distinct areas, examining each one without touching. "It's warded from magic." Kai took a step forward to take a closer look. The door was indeed warded, but the stone around the frame was cracked. "Will you help me with this then?" he asked. "Maybe we can buckle these hinges." Together they pushed. Nothing happened at first. Then, surprisingly quietly, the weakened masonry crumbled in chunks as the frame came away from it. The iron door clattered gently in the frame, and its runes sparked as the enchantment faltered. Era caught the frame before it could crash down, easing it aside. And beyond the threshold, a narrow corridor stretched into darkness. Its walls were lined with decayed banners and the remnants of long-dead torches. Kai drew the crystal dagger to illuminate the space ahead. They slipped through the opening, leaving the postern behind as the tower swallowed them whole. Kai's steps faltered. Lightheadedness washed over him in a slow, listing wave, and the muscles along his ribs let go all at once. He drew a breath, then another. His thoughts cleared in the same motion, in stages, the way a window stops fogging when the air outside finally matches the warmth within. Void's darkest hole. What was I thinking? The urgency was still there. The certainty that this was the only path was still there, but both sat small now against the very real threat of peril that loomed around him. His heart, late to catch up, began to hammer. He had convinced Era to come here. He had argued for it. And now, with the ascent behind them, and the corridor unwinding ahead, the full gravity of that arrived. There would be no walking back through, not now. He braced a hand against the wall. He had wanted this. He had chosen this. Hadn't he? He looked at Era. She was silent, eyes ranging the corridor. The line of her shoulders held tighter than she typically carried it. Her fingers were opening and closing at her side, the way they had at the lip of the maw. The way they had not done since. Did she feel it too? Whatever it was? He wanted to ask, but the corridor was the wrong place.